love how everyone's cameras goes on and we all panic because our hair isn't right or
Yeah, I'm with you.
Bill knows what we're talking about.
Frazzled from the day, and I'm like, ooh.
Oh, lucky. Um, all right, 1 minute or less.
It has to be a record. The third Tuesday in a row that we've been together.
Listen,
The grind never stops. No, it's
I
a fourth. It's a
my
fourth in the row.
my paycheck's missing. I don't know where it is. Sure it's in the mail. Okay, let's go. Let's get going. We got a big agenda. So, good evening, everyone. The time is now 6:30. So we're going to begin in accordance with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. Today's February 18th, 2025 meeting, public meeting of the Select Board shall be conducted remotely via Zoom. The agenda is posted on the town's website and it identifies how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. As a preliminary matter, this is Select Board Vice Chair Chris Gallo. Please permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Selectman Anderson.
Anderson's here.
Selectman Harrington.
Harrington here.
Selectwoman Rouse.
Rouse here.
Got Chris Gallo here, just in case you didn't know. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Interim Town Manager Mike King.
Present.
Assistant Town Manager Greg Enos.
He is not with us tonight.
Gets a check minus for today's meeting. I'm just kidding. I hope Greg's okay and enjoying, hopefully enjoying some time off. Executive Assistant Amanda Vazzapolo.
Present.
Great. Okay. We do have a public hearing, everyone, at 6:35, which I don't like running public hearings. They're very tricky. Well, Joe would always do such a good job. So let's get some things out of the way. Maybe we can get the announcements out of the way, Selectman Harrington, before that.
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair. Announcements. The Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities is holding a public comment period through February 21st on MBTA communities. The link to the form can be found on the town website. Reminder, there's no overnight parking allowed on public streets in Wrentham through April 1st, 2025. February 28th, 2025 is the last day to license your dogs. Residents who fail to register their dogs by this date are subject to a $50 fine. That's it, Mr. Vice Chair.
Okay, let's go to tab number 2 real quick. Let's do approval of the minutes. Vice Chair would entertain a motion to approve the February 4th, 2025 and February 11th, 2025 open session meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
I had a motion made by Selectman Harrington, second by Selectwoman Rouse. We'll do a roll call vote. Selectwoman Rouse.
Rouse, yes.
Selectman Anderson.
Anderson's yes.
Selectman Harrington.
Harrington, yes.
Chris Gallo, yes. Motion carries 4-0. Looks like we still have 2 minutes. I'm looking for something easy. I don't see anything easy. Mike, do you see anything easy that we could bang out real quick?
I could do a very quick update on the snow and ice deficit.
Go ahead. You're on.
So in the select board packet is an annual notification that the snow and ice budget appropriation of $150,000 is now in deficit. Mass general law allows municipalities to deficit spend for snow and ice operations. This is a common practice amongst many communities, and I will note that once the snow and ice budget is increased, it cannot be adjusted downward unless future expenses are less than the new budgeted amount. Wrentham has historically utilized free cash at the annual town meeting in June to address any deficits.
So this is nothing new to the board. This happens every year. We keep the budget at 150, right? Interim manager Mike?
150,000.
Because we can't go down. Once, if we were to raise that, we can't go down. Does any of the board members have any comments or questions regarding this?
No
No
questions.
questions.
Okay, Mike, no formal vote needed, right?
Correct.
Okay, it's 6:34. I'm gonna read slowly, and I think we'll just hang out for a quick second. While we wait on the 6:35 public hearing. We do have a public hearing at 6:35 regarding the water rates. And now the time is 6:35. And we're going to open the public hearing for the water rate presentation. So at this time, the vice chair would entertain a motion to open the public hearing and review and discuss the water rates effective July 1st, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Selectman Harrington, second by Selectwoman Rouse. With the roll call vote. Selectwoman Rouse,
Rouse, yes.
Selectman Anderson,
Yes.
Selectman Harrington,
Harrington, yes.
Gallo, yes. Motion carries 4-0. At this time now, the vice chair will entertain a motion to waive the reading of the public hearing notice.
So moved.
So moved.
Motion made by Selectman Anderson, second by Selectman Harrington. Roll call vote. Selectwoman Rouse,
Rouse, yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Harrington,
Harrington, yes.
Gallo, yes. Motion carries 4-0. Very efficient tonight. I like that. I'd now like to turn the meeting over and invite Ty and Bond. Did I say that correctly, to present their water rate analysis?
Yes. Hi, I'm Ben Levesque with Time Bond. Can I request to share my screen? I can throw up a quick presentation.
You 100% can. Amanda, or Mike, can we allow him access?
Ben, you should already be all set.
Okay. Are you able to see a picture of your town hall, maybe?
Yes.
Church? Yeah. Of the
Yes,
church,
please.
sorry. All right, and you can hear me okay. I'm sorry, I'm more of a Teams person than a Zoom, so hopefully everything is coming through okay.
Looks great, Ben. We won't hold that against you. Floor is
Thank
yours.
you. All right. Like I said, I'm Ben Levesque with Time Bond. Josh Bouchard is also here present for when we have questions. I have a quick presentation to run through, and then from there, we can happy to answer any questions you might have. So just a quick overview of rate process. We submitted a data request to the town for financial information related to the water enterprise. We use this information to review previous revenues, expenses, capital improvement plans, as well as retained earnings associated with your water enterprise fund. All this is done to look at rates and impacts and any changes that they might have. So in terms of expenses, we look at budgets versus actuals, then we look at future expenses. Expenses are broken into two categories: operating expenses and capital expenses. Future expenses are projected using the budget values escalated for inflation and variability. Debt is based off of existing information and then projected based on planned capital projects. Funding for capital projects are broken into two different categories. We have pay-go projects and debt projects. Typically, anything less than $1 million is identified as a pay-go or a cash-funded project. Anything greater than that becomes debt-funded. A couple of key projects associated with your capital plan for the water involve a proposed DPW facility, supply wells, and then infrastructure improvements throughout the system. So getting into the rates and potential rate increases. Revenues are broken down and summarized into three different categories. There's rate revenue, there's non-rate revenue, and then there's also capital charges. Revenues are projected based on the rate structure for fiscal year and then projected based on customer numbers as well as water usage. We look at the uses data and consumption to confirm current water use and historic trends to help with that future projection. The rate structure for Wrentham is broken up into three different categories. There's a base structure, which you can see, which is a fixed based on meter size. There's a semi-annual customer usage charge. I'm sorry, the base charge is also semi-annual. There's a semi-annual customer usage charge, which is a tier system, which is a progressive tier, which means as you use more water and you bump into a higher tier, the rate goes up. And then there's a semi-annual capital charge that's also based off of usage. The goal is to generate balance revenues to cover expenses while providing retained earnings or stabilization for the enterprise fund with an eye on equity and affordability. So looking ahead at the future rates, you can see based on, hopefully you're seeing the rate screen, there's a fiscal year 25, which is what we are in. There is no rate increase anticipated before the end of the year. But going forward, looking ahead for 5 years out to fiscal year 30, the rates would go up 6%, 8%, 10%, 10%, and 12% in those years, again, to account for capital projects and increases in expenses. So one of the other things we look at is user impacts and affordability. You'll see that the top of this chart, hopefully it's not too fuzzy for you to be able to read, but there's a semi-annual bill, which is based off of a typical customer with an average customer in town with a 5/8 inch meter. And their typical uses, I believe, is 133 gallons per connection. So you can see that if you go down to the second row, there's an annual cost for a residential customer, and that shows from fiscal year 25 out to fiscal year 30 what the annual bill would be after the proposed increases were included. We also look at affordability. There's a household burden index, which is something generated through the American Water Works Association. This standard is used to look at impacts on households that fall into what an average annual water cost would be based on someone that falls into the lowest quintile income or 20th percentile income. AWWA considers an HBI of less than 4.5% to be a moderate to low burden or in the lowest quintile income. And as you can see, based on Wrentham's information, the town is below these increases, as well as the typical bills, fall well below those indicators. So one other question that typically comes up before we get to opening to questions. We did a little comparison with some of the neighboring communities. This is based on their fiscal year 25 rates because that's information we could find. Assuming 133 gallons per day are used with a 5/8 inch water meter, we calculated rates, an annual rate for Norton, Foxborough, Holliston, and Medway, and also included the Wrentham number there at the bottom based on your current rates, just as a comparison of where things fall. So I hope I didn't go too fast. I apologize if I did, but I'm happy to open it up and answer any questions or discussions you might have.
I think you did a great job. I think before I open it up to the board for questions and comments, I just want to make or ask a qualifying question, either to yourself, Ben, or to Mike. This is projected out to FY30. I feel like a best practice is to kind of review these on a more short time frame. 5 years just seems like a lot to set rates 5 years in advance. What's a best practice either Mike or Ben, other communities do? Do they look at these every year, every 2 years, every 3 years?
I can start, and then I obviously would love to hear what Mike has to say. So for what we typically see, it obviously varies by communities depending on where they are in their processes. But based on the extended capital, so we extended out actually even beyond 5 years just to look based on what your capital plan information had, just to account for other things that may be coming. In this case, based on the variables you have with things in the next 3 to 5 years, we would typically say maybe a 3-year rate would be appropriate for now, with either an annual or maybe in 2 years doing what we just call a health check on the status of how are the rates doing relative to generating the revenue you need. Also, in case things change, if capital planning changes, other projects come up, other issues arise, it gives you the chance to be flexible and adjust for that. So some places have done out as far as 5 years or beyond, but if you're asking me my opinion for your particular situation, I think 3 years would make sense.
Mike, anything to add?
Yeah, no, I would just say I would agree with Ben. The town in the past has looked at doing a 3-year adoption period. I think to Ben's point, that's kind of a best practice to maybe in 2 years reevaluate where we're at with capital. Additionally, the DPW building is being worked into this. A vote will be, subsequent to any water rate adoption. So you can obviously come back and look at the rates and see where we are with capital planning at that time.
So Mike, just to clarify, when you say the DPW has been baked into this or factored into this, does that mean we are trying to budget for the possible future town voting approval of a DPW facility, and we're trying to offset some of the burden to the taxpayer by raising additional capital through the water enterprise fund?
Yeah, that is correct. So 50% of the DPW's operations are water. So what is being proposed here is that 50% of the debt service costs for a new DPW building be picked up by the water enterprise fund. And there's a planning in this case in increasing rates. So instead of having a situation where the DPW building gets approved and then all of a sudden you need to increase rates exponentially over a short period of time, this is the ability to kind of build that in, knowing that DPW building vote is forthcoming.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to open it up to the board members at this time. I'm going to start with Selectwoman Rouse.
Thank you, Vice Chair Gallo. Just a couple of questions. Thank you for the clarification on the DPW building. That's very helpful. That was a question of mine. It's no surprise that things financially are tight for all residents. So this is obviously a concern, and I want to make sure that we address all the questions. Can you tell us the percentage of residents that are have a water meter in town? How many residents that encompasses, Mike?
I'm actually going to turn that question over to Brian just to confirm.
I don't have an exact number for you, but it's a little under 4,000. It's between 3,600 and 4,000. I think closer to the 4,000 number. I think around 3,800.
Okay, thank you.
Brian,
And then
what percentage is that of residents?
I would say about 90% of the town has town water.
90% of the residents of the homes in town have town?
90% of the homes in town have town water would be my best guess.
Does that math add up? And that's a question to anyone.
so it would be more percentage of homes that are impacted. My question then was not, so it would be what's the percentage of homes impacted versus residents, right? So you're saying 90% of residents are impacted by or participate and receive a water bill.
Yes, that would be my
Okay.
best guess. Around 90% would take.
Okay.
And then just so I can have clarification, is there any data in terms of what other towns have done as it relates to their increases each year? Or, is there any sort of historical data that it is like a 3%, 5%, 2%, or is it really just across the board, just varies from town to town?
I can tell you what just anecdotally what we've sort of seen. It definitely varies by where places are relative to implementing capital projects or age of communities. There are a lot of places that'll have a steady incremental increase over time. There are places that would have substantial increases because for whatever reason, things hadn't been updated for a while, and then there's a significant capital expense or something that comes up, and they're forced to implement pretty significant rate increases. I've seen them over 20 to 25% in an annual year just to catch up with some things that hadn't happened over history. So I guess a good practice, one of the things I think that Mike alluded to was that we're trying to build in a gradual increase to avoid any of those types of spikes. And there are other projects and there are other expenses that the water enterprise is trying to account for, and that this way we're trying to make it more of a smooth option as opposed to a jolt, if for lack of a better thing, when things need to be changed.
And according to the chart, so it's been 4 years since we've done an increase in water rates. Is that correct?
I believe the last one was either 21 or 22, fiscal year 22, maybe.
Okay.
FY22 was the last increase.
The last one. Okay. That's all for me. Thank you.
Okay. Selectman Anderson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. So my only question, and this may be for Mike, is the way I understand this, in a couple of years, we can come back and revisit this, see if things have changed.
Absolutely. So if the board were to adopt a 3-year increase, 3 years of
Mhm.
increases, there's nothing preventing from the board from coming back and revisiting and adjusting at a future time.
Okay, would that be something that we should put on our agenda now so it doesn't slip through the cracks?
We can absolutely make a reminder of that. So if the board wants to come back in 2 years, come back in a year, that would be at the board's discretion. But I definitely think it makes sense based on where we are with our capital plan and to reassess where we are at with that capital planning process and projects that, no later than 2 years.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I'm all set, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. And just to clarify, before I pass it to Selectman Harrington, the purpose tonight was to hear the presentation. I'm actually going to continue after we hear from the public. We want to hear if any of the public wants to chime in. We're going to invite the public to chime in, during the week. They can send us an email, sboffice at wrentham.gov, because we obviously want to hear from our voters. And we will continue the public hearing to our next meeting, which is Tuesday, March 4th. At that time, I would propose that if the board feels comfortable, we take a vote. So I just want to let everyone know, I should have said that earlier. That's kind of the plan for tonight. I hope that's okay. And with that being said, we're going to pass that over to Selectman Harrington.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. So if I'm understanding this correctly, on a 5-year projection, it would be a 46% increase over 5 years. The highest percentage of the increase would become in the latter years. If we were to do a 3-year, it would be a 24% increase, and would be moderate increases in FY 26, 27, and then 10% in 28. Am I reading that right?
Correct.
Okay. And then how many homes are there in Wrentham? If we have 90% of the people, 3,800 water customers doesn't sound right to me. How many homes are there in Wrentham, Brian?
Not sure. I mean, going off of
All right, so why don't we get some accurate numbers on the how many homes we have, how many customers are, how many, if we can get the correct data for our next discussion rather than guessing, I'd appreciate that. And then last but not least, how are businesses affected by these increases? This is average residential customers. Where does the businesses come into play?
It would depend on their water use, and depending on which tier that they fell into and their meter size. We didn't run any specific examples for a particular business, but the rates are uniform across the board in terms of a percentage. If their use triggers into the higher categories, it can be calculated just based off of how they would calculate their current bill with a new rate.
Because so the business, the usage is based off the size of their meter, but the increases are all the same. Over 5 years would be a 46% increase.
Correct.
Okay. All right. And
I just wanted to add one thing. Based on our information, we showed that in fiscal year 24 there were 4,263 connections for Wrentham.
4,362 water connections.
4,263 water connections.
263. Okay. And then so that's residential and business?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you.
No problem. And so as part of the follow-up, we were just asked to tighten up any of those numbers that were brought up during this Q&A. And again, if any information comes from the resident, the public hearing aspect that we're going to invite the public to speak now, we'd appreciate that. So at this time, I'm going to, if there's no more direct comments from the board, at this time, I'm going to ask if any of the public wants to raise their hand. I would ask you to do us a favor, raise your hand. Please direct your comments through me to whoever you want to direct them to, and we would love to hear from you. So at this time, I'm going to ask if any of our public would like to weigh in and ask any questions or make any comments. And Ben, while we're waiting for any public that might want to, raise their hand and chime in, can you just verify though that when we did a analysis against the other communities, Wrentham was on the low side? Can you just put that? Can you bring that chart back up, or at least talk through that again? I always like to ask, what do the neighboring communities pay? Not that we like to follow what our neighbors are doing, but it's very important for us to get a baseline, just to make sure that we're in the right ballpark. I want to be able to tell the voters, like, hey, listen, we are, half of what the other towns are charging. We are 200% of what the other towns are charging. It's very good information.
This is hopefully you can see it. I put the slide back up. Oops, hang on. There we go. I got a little ahead of myself. Those were locally selected communities. I believe these are based off of when the last study was done several years ago. These were similar communities at the time that were used. That's why we selected them. There are a couple of other neighboring communities that we did not include, mostly because it's not an apples to apples comparison. They don't, only a certain portion of their community has public water, or it's mostly private wells. So we didn't, it's not probably as good of a comparison. So that was the basis for selecting these.
Okay.
I don't have any others available to offer, like in other communities. These are the ones we had looked at.
Okay. And just in case anyone viewing, I don't know what everyone can see because they're not looking at our packets, right? So anyone that's watching, Norton, this is assuming the same average bill, the same 5/8 meter. Norton, they're saying is around $1,044. Foxborough's $1,272. Holliston $717. Medway $1,543, and Wrentham at $587. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's on my screen. Yeah.
Okay, great. Last call. Would anyone from the public like to raise your hand and make a comment before we move on? Okay, seeing none. Vice Chair would entertain a motion to continue the public hearing until next select board meeting, which is Tuesday, March 4th, 2025 at 6:35 p.m.
So moved.
So moved.
I had a motion made by Selectman Anderson, a second by Selectman Harrington. We'll do a roll call vote. Selectwoman Rouse.
Sorry, Rouse, yes.
Selectman
Yeah.
Anderson. Thanks, Jim. Selectman Harrington.
Harrington, yes.
Chris Gallo, yes. Motion carries 4-0. So public comment is continued. Okay. Next item on the agenda. Let's go to tab 5. We have an interview and appointment of Sarah Pierce to the Solid Waste Recycling Committee. In our packets, we have an application from Sarah to the Solid Waste and Recycling Committee. We have an email from Karen Ketchum regarding the appointment. Do we have Sarah Pierce with us here tonight? Yes, we do.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Sarah. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Welcome to Wrentham Select Board meeting. It's great to have you. So I just wanted to take a moment to run through your application, which we all have in our packet. I wanted to give the board an opportunity to ask a few questions. So at this time, I'm going to open up the select board, and we're going to start with Selectwoman Rouse.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Sarah, pleasure to meet you, and thank you for your application. Since others are listening might not have had the opportunity to read it, can you just give us a little description about yourself and why you're interested in joining this committee?
Sure. Yeah, my name's Sarah Pierce. I've lived in Wrentham since 2018. I've been involved in town a bit. I'm a GIS specialist by trade. So I volunteered to make that interactive parade route map for Wrentham 350. I'd like to stay involved in the town and maybe help coordinate some community-based waste reduction programs, and I feel like this is a good way to do it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. No further questions.
Selectman Anderson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. No, I actually, I've met Sarah a couple times. I think she'd do a good job in that committee.
Thank you,
Thank
Jim.
you. Selectman Harrington.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I read through her application and Karen Ketchum's recommendation, so I don't have any questions at this point. And just want to thank you for your time and volunteering. Look forward to meeting you in person.
Great. Sarah, same goes for me. I looked over your application, very qualified. I think you'd be a great addition to the team. We love our residents getting involved, more involved. I know you're already involved. So thank you for putting yourself out there. And at this time, the vice chair would entertain a motion to appoint Sarah Pierce to the Solid Waste Recycling Committee for a term effective immediately and expiring on June 30th, 2025.
So moved.
I have a
Second.
motion made by Selectman Anderson, second by Selectman Harrington. We'll do a roll call vote. Selectwoman Rouse,
Gross, yes.
Selectman Anderson,
Anderson's a yes.
Selectman Harrington,
Harrington, yes.
Chris Gallo, yes. Motion carries 4-0. Sarah, I think you need to be sworn in, correct, Mike? So please see town clerk office and get sworn in.
Sounds good. Thank you all.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Good night.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, we're going to go to tab number 6. This is a vote to accept the resignation of Lou Elevato from the Wrentham Elementary School Building Committee. There's a resignation letter in our packet. I know Lou very well. I served with him on the DPW Building Committee. I didn't ask you to read that other letter into the record, Selectman Harrington. Mike, is that a big deal? From Sarah, there was an email from Mrs. Ketchum there.
No, I think that's okay, but there does have to be the resignation read in this case.
Selectman Harrington, would you read into the record the resignation letter, please?
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair. Letter dated February 10th from Lou Avalato, Select Board, Town of Wrentham, 79 South Street, Wrentham, Mass, regarding resignation from the Wrentham Elementary School Building Committee. Dear Select Board, I'm writing to formally announce my resignation from the Wrentham Elementary School Building Committee, effective immediately. I trust you'll find a suitable replacement who can dedicate the time and energy required for active participation in the committee. Thank you for your understanding. Sincerely, Lou, Architect, Building Inspector.
Okay. Any discussion from the Select Board? Mike, anything to add?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Being none, the vice chair would entertain a motion to accept with regrets the resignation of Lou Elevato from the Wrentham Elementary School Building Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Selectman Anderson, second by Selectwoman Rouse. Do a roll call vote. Selectwoman Rouse,
Gross, yes.
Selectman Anderson,
Anderson's a yes.
Selectman Harrington,
Harrington's a yes.
Chris Gallo, yes with regrets. Motion carries 4-0. Okay, now opportunity arises, right? So we'll go to tab 7. And this is an interview and appointment of Tony Roberto to the Wrentham Elementary School Building Committee. We have an application in our packet that we've all had a chance to read. I would like to welcome Tony. You with us? I think I see you there, Tony. How are you tonight?
You guys, how are you?
Great to have you.
Thank you.
I'm going to open it up to the board, Tony, just to ask you any questions that they might have, and then we'll go to a vote. I'm going to start with Selectwoman Rouse.
Hi, Tony. Thank you for volunteering to be on the committee. I've heard great things about you through other committee members when they were excited to receive your application. I'd love to hear, again, if you could tell us why you're interested in joining the committee and why you feel like you're qualified.
I've been a Wrentham resident for the past 15 years. My son is now a student at the Delaney School. I've been in the construction industry since my high school years, so 20 plus years. I feel like it's something that I can give back to the community, and I'm excited to do so.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Selectman Anderson.
Yeah, thank you. So Tony, first of all, I want to thank you for your willingness to serve. But could you just maybe explain your background and how it relates to the
So
school
I'm
building?
a mechanical contractor.
Mhm.
I started our business in Wrentham. We moved to Norfolk in 2013, 2014. We currently service the town buildings and the schools. Been doing so for the past like 4 or 5 years. Um, I'm a graduate of Wentworth Institute of Technology. I have a bachelor degree in construction management. And again, I've been involved in construction since my high school years, so early 2000s, late 90s. So again, just trying to get back to the community that supports me and our business.
Well, thank you. I did look at the packet information, and you are very well qualified. So I want to thank you for you applying.
Thank you.
Anything else, Selectman Anderson?
That's it, Mr. Vice Chair.
And Tony, just to clarify, do you live in Wrentham?
I do.
Okay, so you said you moved to Norfolk in
Our
2000.
Yeah, our business moved to Norfolk.
Got it. Okay. I was nervous for a split second. I
Nope.
thought.
I still live in Wrentham. My son goes to Delaney. You were actually Anthony's T-ball coach, his first year at T-ball, or assistant coach.
I remember Anthony.
So yeah, he was on the same team as your daughter.
Great. Yeah. Madeline and yes, that's
Yep.
awesome. Well,
Yep.
now that it all comes together. So
Yep.
thank you for clarifying that. I
No problem.
apologize.
Thank
I
you.
just want to make sure that no one else thought that you might be a Norfolk resident.
Nope, no
This is
outsiders, no.
Norfolk. You live here. Selectman Harrington.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Yeah, I had the opportunity to read through the packet earlier today. Obviously well qualified for the position. Thank you, for volunteering your time, and look forward to meeting you in person.
Thank you. Just to add to, our business has done multiple public school projects as a controls contractor for other mechanical contractors throughout the state over the past 10 years. So myself and our business have quite a bit of experience working on public projects, especially schools in the state.
It's great.
Seems like it. Seems great. I think you'd be a great addition. So
Yeah.
thank you for putting yourself out there, Tony.
Thank you.
At this time, any other discussion from any of the board members or any of the town staff?
I just want to add one point, and that's that this position that's being filled needs, per the MSBA, has to be filled by someone with either architectural, engineering, or construction experience, and that Mr. Roberto fits those qualifications.
Thank you, interim town manager King, for that clarification. And at this time, the vice chair would entertain a motion to appoint Tony Roberto to the Wrentham Elementary School Building Committee for a term effective immediately and expiring on June 30, 2026. Mr. Roberto, should you be elected, voted in, I just want you to know that you should see the town clerk for swearing in and state ethics information. So do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, it looked like Selectwoman Rouse made the motion and Selectman Harrington seconded it. Any further discussion? Being none, we'll do a roll call vote. Selectwoman Rouse,
Rouse, yes.
Selectman Anderson,
Yes.
Selectman Harrington,
Harrington, yes.
Gallo, yes. Motion carries 4-0. Tony, welcome to the team. Please do go see the town clerk for swearing in and state ethics information.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, moving right along here. We're going to jump to, not jump, but we're going to go to, we did tab 7. It looks like we're going to go to tab 8. And I have a note here, so give me 1 second. So tab 8, it looks like we're going to vote to open and close the June 2nd, 2025 annual spring town meeting warrant. So at this time, the vice chair would entertain a motion to open and close the warrant June 2nd, 2025 spring town meeting warrant. And it should read to open the warrant for June 2nd, 2025 on for the spring town meeting on today's date, February 18th, 2025, and close it on April 3rd, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
So motion made by Selectman Anderson, second by Selectwoman Rouse. Any further discussion? Being none, we'll do a roll call vote. Selectwoman Rouse,
Rouse, yes.
Selectman Anderson,
Yes.
Selectman Harrington.
Harrington, yes.
Hello, yes. Motion carries 4-0 with authority. Mike, did we do that right? Was that correct there? Any
Yes. Yep. The
okay.
opening closing dates. Perfect.
Perfect. Okay. Next,
That
we're gonna
through you, Mr. Chair, does that typo need to be fixed on the date?
yes, I think I got an email that Amanda was already fixing that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that. All right, next is tab number 9. Okay, so tab number 9 is a discussion of select board participation on other boards, commissions, and committees. Why did this come up, you might ask? Well, I'm going to tell you. With the unfortunate passing of our chairman and good friend Joe Botash, who was the liaison to the EDC, I was receiving phone calls from members of the EDC and other committees asking who was going to step into that role, which made me ask Mike and the executive team to get us a summary of, per the charter, all of the board's participation, meaning which committees and commissions we're supposed to be on per the charter. Mike, is that a fair assessment?
Yes.
Okay. So with that being said, Mike, do you mind, telling the board, per our packet and the millions of people listening at home, what commissions and committees and boards the select board per the charter needs to participate in?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. So there are 4 standing committees that the select board is required to participate on due to the town bylaws. The first is the Cable Advisory Committee. There is a select board member as a non-voting liaison. This position is appointed by the select board and it is currently vacant. The second position is on the Community Preservation Committee. That role is appointed by the select board and is currently filled by select board member Harrington. The third is the Landscape Committee. There is a select board member that serves on that committee that is appointed by the select board. That role is currently vacant. And the fourth standing committee is the General Bylaw Review Committee, of which a select board member is appointed by the moderator, and that is currently vacant as well. There are 4 in total.
Thank you for that clarification. And similarly to what I said to the EDC, to my fellow board members, I basically said to the EDC, I said, hey, listen, you guys have our full support. If you need us, if you want to tell us, update us at any time, we'll gladly put you on an agenda. So I didn't feel like it was necessary to maintain, to keep a liaison from the select board with the EDC, especially if the charter doesn't mandate we have to. However, if one of my fellow colleagues wanted to volunteer to do so, who am I to begrudge you of that honor? So that's related to EDC. Mike, my feeling on the cable advisory, and I want to open this up to board discussion here. This is a non-voting liaison that's been vacant. How many years has this been vacant? Do we know?
I'm unsure, but it appears to be quite some time.
Okay. What would we have to do to change the bylaw to make this not be, to not have a select board member sitting as a non-voting liaison?
So the select board can add an article to the June town meeting warrant to adjust the bylaw to remove the non-voting liaison from the standing committee. I will add that the General Bylaw Review Committee would review that proposal and that there's some open positions that the moderator needs to appoint to that, including a select board member.
Okay. So before I open up to the board, community preservation, we have strong representation on that by a fellow board member. I think he's doing a great job there. Landscape committee vacant and general bylaw committee vacant. So first, let me ask the board general thoughts on all this, and I'll start with Selectwoman Rouse.
Have we heard from Cable 8 and Liz Harkins in terms of if they're interested in having a liaison? Have we ever, since it's been vacant for years, has there ever been a request? for a select board liaison, or is it just per the charter?
It's per the town bylaws. I haven't heard anything since I've been here. Amanda, have we received any correspondence in the last several years?
No,
Requesting
that's more for like the cable contracts too, like the Verizon and the Comcast contracts. They handle the negotiations for that.
So
So
maybe
that's it.
maybe we
How
should
about like the
reach out.
landscape committee too? Yeah.
What I was gonna say is maybe what we should do, Mike, is I just like a non-voting position. I think it's again, if Cable 8 needs us, my position is if Cable 8 needs us, the door's open. They can come to a meeting at any time, and we'll definitely be there. I just don't know if A, they're looking to fill that position, and if B, that's the best use of this board's time. But if someone wants to volunteer and do it, who am I to begrudge you? And I would suggest, Mike, before we, were to vote on these, I would ask you to reach out to Liz at Cable 8 and ask her. She might not even know, right? Because she's relatively new as well. So she might not even know that there's this position.
I would do the same for is the landscape committee also been vacant for a while?
Yeah,
Do we,
that's my understanding as well. So I can also reach out to the landscape committee about that position too.
I think that would be helpful, and then we can make the decision if it's necessary. Also, on the EDC, I like what you had mentioned to them. That's a group that I think is really going through a transition for in the upcoming months. So if our involvement is going to be helpful to them, then I second them reaching out to us and getting us more involved if necessary.
Yeah, I agree. And I told the EDC members, I spoke to one of them, two of them, and said, whatever you need us to do, we'll be there.
Mhm.
And I actually asked one of them if she thought it was, important to have a select board member sitting on the board. The response was interesting. She really didn't think it was, that she was only one member. She didn't think it was necessary. And having a select board member sitting on that, it kind of brings a different dynamic as well. Maybe good and bad. So that's something we
Yeah.
should, well.
Yeah.
And then Mike, talk to us about this general bylaw review committee position.
Yeah, so I would say if there's a board member that's interested in participating, that could then be communicated to the moderator for his consideration for appointment for that role.
Similarly, has this been a vacant? Is this just because there's really nothing happening right now with that, or has this been a vacant position? Do we know for a while?
So by looking at the committee, there's several vacant positions. The bylaw review committee generally meets when there's been a proposal for town meeting to update the town bylaws.
Sure.
So their meetings are basically driven around the town meeting warrant.
Okay. Any feedback from our moderator? I think we'd welcome that as well.
Okay, I'll reach
And
out.
I think if because this is not something that we have to kind of vote or delegate tonight, correct, Mike?
No, it's just a general discussion to start.
I would say I think we have some good action items, some follow-up. We bring it back to the board and see what the responses are from the other, interested parties on those boards and committees. And then, we go ahead and make a decision. And I'm all for volunteering, as needed. I mean, if there are positions that need to be filled per the bylaw, the charter, then, we'll have to talk about doing that. Selectman Harrington, did you want to say something?
I did, through you, Mr. Chair. I would like to see a presentation, possibly biannually, from each of, rather than having someone sit on a board with cable and landscape. Wouldn't it be nice to see a biannual, 15, 20-minute presentation at a select board meeting, just to let us know, what's going on and if they require any input? Is that something any of the board members would be interested in? And as far as the CPC, I currently have that position. I am a voting member and also the vice chair. And we'll see if I end up back on that come April.
Bill, listen, I think it's a fair point. Maybe not a 15 or 20-minute presentation. Maybe pretty high level, as needed.
Yeah.
Um, but I think listen, I think you make a good point. I think the boards and committees need to know that this board has their backs, and whether or not they have a select board member sitting on the committee or board, is irrelevant, because if they need us, we're there for them, and at any time they can be scheduled on our meeting, and we'll always make time for them. But to your
Right.
point, I think it's a fair question that we should address.
Thank you.
Any other discussion, Selectman Anderson?
Yes. No, actually, I concur with a lot of the comments that were made already. But I would say this: I think for the non-voting positions and the ex officio, we've all got busy schedules. So I think it'd be difficult for us to try to make all those meetings on top of the meetings that we have already with the board.
Amen. I think that's a fair point. So it's all great points taken into consideration. Mike, as you're doing follow up with these boards and committees, please relay our comments back, and then let's put this on a future meeting so we can, hear their comments back and see if we can figure this out once and for all. But to Jim's point, I mean, I staunchly agree. I mean, if someone needs us on there, like, I know the CPC is an active board and it's an important one. I get it why we have representation on that. But I do want to be cognizant of the time commitments that our select board members have with this, commitment here. And then on top of that, all the other ones as well. So, all right. Okay. Seeing no further discussion, let's move on. Looks like we're going to go to tab 10 at this point, and we're going to talk about goals. We're going to discuss and possibly vote to adopt the FY 25 and 26 goals and priorities. We've all had, at this point, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we've all had ample time to review the goals, the proposed 25, 26 goals, strategic goals and priorities. We even had an opportunity to meet with interim manager, town manager King, and discuss our own goals and trying to get them on, the master goal sheet. I've personally been able to review this document, I want to say at length. I have a good understanding of what the goals are. I agree with the goals. And I'm ready to discuss and or vote if my fellow board members are. So I'm going to open it up to the board, starting with Michelle, Selectwoman Rouse.
No further questions regarding the goals and priorities.
And would you be ready to vote if we were ready to vote?
I would. I've had ample time to review in my discussions with Mr. King, so I'm comfortable.
Great. Selectman Anderson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Yeah, so I have also reviewed the strategic goals and priorities. I think it's a very aggressive agenda. I like it, and I'm ready to vote tonight as well.
Fantastic. Thank you. Selectman Harrington.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Vice Chair. We've spent quite a bit of time reviewing the goals there. We developed them probably, 3 years ago. We've knocked some off. We've added some. I've had time to sit with interim town manager Mike King and make a couple of ads, and I'd be ready to vote.
Fantastic. Thank you for everyone's hard work and diligence with this. This is important. As we all know, this board is an active and aggressive board. I mean, we always say that. We set high goals for ourselves, and we put a lot of onus on ourselves to make sure we get them done and keep this town moving forward. So I'm happy that everyone said that. And at this time, Vice Chair would entertain a motion to adopt the fiscal 25-26 select board strategic goals and priorities as presented.
So moved.
I had a motion made by Selectman Anderson, a second by Selectman Harrington. Any further discussion? Being none, we'll do a roll call vote. Selectwoman Rouse.
Rouse, yes.
Selectman Anderson.
Yes.
Selectman, that always gets me. Selectman Harrington.
Harrington, yes.
Yeah, Chris Gallo, yes. Motion carries 4-0. Okay, next on the agenda, looks like I'm going to turn the meeting over to Mike King, interim town manager. Tab 11, we're going to discuss the public comment to the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities regarding the MBTA communities law. Mr. King?
Thank you, Vice Chair Gallo. So as previously discussed at the February 4th meeting, the public comment period for the Executive Office of Housing Livable Communities, MBTA Communities regulations, it runs from January 31st through February 21st, so 3 days from now. And per the last meeting, it was discussed on having individual board members communicate any comments they might have to me, for me to draft a joint letter from the select board, which is in your packet tonight. I'd be looking to see if the board is okay with me forwarding that letter to the Executive Office of Housing Livable Communities as written. So that way we can get it in before the upcoming deadline on the 21st.
Do we need to read this into the record, Mike, or is this just known that?
No, it's not necessary. And a vote technically isn't required unless you want to take one, but I just need a general consensus if the letter is okay.
Okay, select board members, has everyone had an opportunity to review the letter that Mr. King has described to us?
Yes.
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 Okay, and is everyone okay with Mr. King submitting this letter?
Yes.
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 Okay, so Mike, no formal vote. I'm okay as well. No formal vote needed. We'd appreciate you forwarding this letter on behalf of the Wrentham Select Board.
I will do so. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, at this time, we're going to go to tab number 12, and we're going to get any updates. We're going to discuss any updates on the MBTA communities. Not that we haven't talked about this topic a lot lately. Mr. King, do you have any updates for the board?
I do. So we do have information concerning which communities submitted action plans before the February 13th submittal deadline that was established by the Executive Office of Housing Livable Communities for those new 2025 action plans. So out of the 31 communities, 27 submitted action plans. This included Wrentham, and the town is now in interim compliance through July 14th, 2025. I will note that the 4 communities that did not submit action plans as of today are Halifax, Marshfield, Middleborough, and Milton. That's what I have for an update, Mr. Vice Chair.
Okay. I also know there was an article floating around. I don't want to speak to it because I wasn't as proficient. Selectwoman Rouse, I think.
Yeah, it was an article. I believe it was
update the board. Thank you.
Sure. And just to follow up on what Mike has said in terms of those 27 towns, just to clarify, that is to continue compliance. So that keeps us in compliance till July. Nothing otherwise in submitting that action plan.
Yes.
I want to clarify that, because then there was an article in the Sun Chronicle, which was, I felt, very misleading, as well as other people that had read it and had sent it to me as well, in which it was saying that Norton and Wrentham, who had voted in our town meetings to say no to MBTA, was now, since they submitted their action plan, leaning towards complying. And that is very misleading. The intent of us submitting that action plan, which we have repeated significantly since we started discussing this at the start of the new year, was to allow us to receive the information that we requested back in October from the state relating to the financial impact and the audit information, and maintaining in compliance until July. Nothing else changes at what was voted in December, or we did not change course at all. It's giving us that additional time. So I just wanted to re-emphasize that, because I felt that it was very misleading to individuals that may have read that and have not maybe participated in our meetings and have heard our updates, may have thought differently. So I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, thank you for that. And again, a further clarification. I think we've said this about 48,000 times. We voted no.
Mm-hmm.
significantly no at town meeting at the time because we were waiting on three things: the Milton case, the unfunded mandate law, and the fiscal impact analysis. The only thing that's changed is the Milton verdict. We are still waiting on the unfunded mandate determination, and we're still waiting on the fiscal impact analysis. Is that a fair statement, Mr. King?
I agree with that, Mr. Vice Chair.
Okay, so
And
hold on. Let me just say this, please, Selectwoman Rouse, and then I'll give you the floor back.
yeah,
So just to be clear, this board voted that because it does nothing to promise that we're going to vote a certain way, in should we get the information and call a special town meeting so the voters, the Wrentham tax-paying voters, once again can tell the state if we accept or reject MBTA communities. The interim compliance does nothing but keep us in interim compliance until we get the necessary information to determine if we're going to call a special town meeting and let the voters decide the fate of the MBTA Communities Act. Does my fellow board members, is that a fair statement? Are we all on the same page? I see heads nodding.
very much on the same page. Yes.
Selectwoman Ross, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just want to add into that. Let's also remember there are a significant number of legal actions also taking place. So this gives time to see how those play out as well. There were many other legal actions that were submitted against the state on this in addition to Milton. So this gives additional time to see how that plays out, and no decisions have been made on how we'll handle in July. So I just want everyone to understand that and reemphasize what you had said. So thank you.
No, thank you. And just to be clear, interim town manager Mike King, do we have any update from the state, the auditor? Did they give us any guidance on when we would have this unfunded mandate ruling or the fiscal impact analysis?
So at last contact, the latest it should have been last week. Unfortunately, that's now passed. Continually reaching out to them for updates. They've been non-committal on an exact time.
Non-committal on giving the taxpayers vital information that we need to make a decision. Anyone that would vote, with all due respect, but anyone that would vote the MBT communities in without knowing the fiscal impact to your community, I think you should be voted off the board. I think that's ridiculous. I think that's a huge disservice to the taxpayer. So we're going to wait and get the information that we requested back in October on the unfunded mandate law determination and the fiscal impact analysis. We're going to continue to ask nicely, but we need that so that we can make a decision and keep our voters informed. Okay, Selectman Anderson, do you have anything else to add?
Nope, no further comments.
Okay, Selectman Harrington, do you have anything else to add regarding MBTA communities?
Muted.
Bill, you're on mute.
Thank you. One thing, Mr. Vice Chair, we had requested the information from the auditor back in October. They declined, and they asked us to provide them with additional time, and we declined, and yet we still don't have our information. Is that right, Mike?
That is correct. They asked for an extension, and that was not granted by the board.
Right, but yet they still, don't they under Mass General Law required to provide us the data within, was it 60 days?
Yeah, Mass General Law requires them statutorily to respond within 60 days. They have failed to do so.
All right, thank you. No further questions.
And what's
Nothing to add.
Just stay there for a second. What's our recourse? If they're asking, like, isn't this hilarious? If we were asked to comply by a certain date on MBTA communities and we didn't, we'd be deemed not in compliance. We'd be, you're horrible, you're costing the town money, all this stuff. But we asked them to comply and give us information that we needed. They said no. Then they asked for an extension. We said no, when we still didn't get the information. But there's no recourse for the state. Like, do we have any recourse here? I'm just curious, Mike. And that's not a question for you, then we can ask the town council. But
yeah, I guess where this could be arbitrated, right? In terms of, they haven't responded to our requests. Do we follow it up with a legal demand letter?
Which is going to
Uh,
do nothing, right?
you know, my plan is to, as I have been doing regularly, contact them for updates. I plan on doing so again. And I will let the board know if it changes. Unfortunately, the term that's been used is soon.
Yeah.
Clarification on that was, hopefully within 2 weeks, and that since that time frame has now passed. Um, what we're doing is we're continually reaching out for the updates and reminding them the importance of this as we do that, for the voters to decide, and in terms of upcoming votes on any zoning.
Well, we appreciate your diligence, Mike. We appreciate your follow-up. Please keep us posted. Any further discussion before we move on? Seeing none. Looks like the next thing on the agenda, Mike, is the interim town manager report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. So I would like to report that we have received a communication from the Conservation Commission, and it voted unanimously last week to request that the Select Board exercise its right of first refusal for the property located at 2095 West Street. The Planning Board is meeting tomorrow evening, and the right of first refusal is on its agenda. Additionally, the Community Preservation Committee will be meeting next week to discuss as well. The board was looking to get recommendations from all relevant committees before making a decision. So by the end of the month, we should have that information. FY26 budget update. Budget meetings are currently underway to review and discuss individual department budget requests with department heads. I also have a noteworthy update in that we have been notified by Maya that the town's health insurance renewal has come in at 17%. This is a significant increase, and I have requested a meeting with Maya to review in detail and discuss ways to proactively lower costs in regards to our health insurance budget. And lastly, the DPW sidewalk plow machine is currently out of service as of the most recent storm, and a claim has been put in with the town's insurer. In the interim, the DPW is looking into renting a unit to clear the sidewalks around school buildings during snow events, in order to facilitate access to students who walk to school. In terms of a worst case scenario, the DPW will utilize a skid steer to clear any sidewalks. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Sorry to hear that. Hopefully that gets rectified as soon as possible. Does anyone have any questions or comments for our interim town manager regarding the interim town manager report? Anyone? No?
I do.
Go ahead, Selectwoman Rouse.
The MIA insurance, that is so disheartening. That is a significant increase. So I'm assuming there are other groups that we can request proposals from, or if not, I can't imagine that there aren't other groups out there we can do that from, or no.
Yeah,
Yes.
so we did this exercise previously to go to Maya. So we went out to the market, we looked at Maya, we looked at entering into direct agreements with different carriers. So, so Maya offers Blue Cross. We compared that to going to Blue Cross directly, contracting with the town. We found that Maya had the most favorable proposal and rates at that time. Since the town's moved to Maya, it has had significant savings the last several years. So no increases on renewals of higher than 6%. When we were with West Suburban Health Group, they were experiencing rate increases over 10. This year in terms of Maya, it's not just the town of Wrentham, it's across the board. So rates, the lowest rate that they had for a renewal was 9.9%. The highest was just below 20. So Wrentham's definitely in the upper quartile of that. It's a concern. And, the other piece in regards to this is, if we go out and we look at changing, the insurer, you have to work with the Public Employee Committee, which is the union, to negotiate some changes. So we'd have to convene them. So there's a lot of pieces. Really the unfortunate part of this in terms of the budget process is we don't get notified by the insurer until February what our rate is, and you're already well into budget season. So, the timing of it is very concerning in regards to, this is well above our past experience, and now you're getting a large increase of 17%.
Mike, can you speak to, like, do we know why we're getting such a large increase? Are they saying it's just the cost of healthcare, or is there a specific reasons why Rentham's at the 17%, other communities are at 9%?
Yeah, so part of it is healthcare trend. Our claims our loss ratio is going up from 87% to 95% since the last renewal. Additionally, we have some high cost claimants, which can affect the town's rates as well.
Understood. Okay. Selectman Anderson, you have anything to ask the town manager, interim town manager?
No, sir.
Selectman Harrington, anything to add? Ask the interim town manager his report.
Nothing at this time. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Okay, Mike. Yeah, like as Michelle stated, whatever we can do, talk to Maya, talk to other groups. I know you and I had a quick conversation brainstorming other potential avenues. It's a substantial increase. So whatever we can do to bring our rate down, I know we trust that you'll do whatever you can, and you'll update the board as soon as you have something for us. Absolutely.
I'll provide you with the results of that meeting with Maya.
Okay, at this time, we're going to go into executive session. Executive session, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiation with non-union personnel, town manager contract. So the vice chair would entertain a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, to conduct strategy session in preparation for negotiation with non-union personnel, and to enter back into open session for the purpose of adjournment only.
So moved.
So moved.
Motion made by Selectman Anderson, second by Selectwoman Rouse. We'll have a roll call vote. Selectwoman Rouse.
Rouse, yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Harrington.
Harrington, yes.
Chris Gallo, yes. Motion carries 4-0. We are now in executive session. Please kick out anyone that shouldn't be.